behalf of the, I'll try that again. Good evening, thank you. We call to order the Olalla Municipal Advisory Council meeting for Thursday, September 5th, 2024, starting at 6 p.m. Mr. Secretary, so are there any introductions? Are both of you speaking on an item? Okay. And then we have our sheriff, so we'll introduce them then. So no other introductions. We move on to item 2, approval of the agenda. I trust that everybody received a copy of the agenda.
Just a note, Chair, that there was a revised agenda sent out. You can both draft unless there's any changes the group would like to make to this particular draft. I just wanted to assure that everyone got a 3-page update. Simply the difference between the first and the second, one was my error. The all-one proposal had been tabled. I forgot to put it in the initial draft. I apologize for that. We also received a late all-one referral that is time sensitive, so I included that one as well. And we'll talk about both in context with Robert and Dan's guidance.
And those were included on your revised
agenda has those things in it.
Okay.
Sorry, when did the new all-one piece go up on the website?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
When did the new all-one piece go up on the website?
The all-one piece on the council website?
The all-one referral? The updated agenda?
That was not on the website. I mean, it's part of the
continuation from last month.
Yeah. I just if we're taking action on it, I just want to make sure we're on the right side of Brown Act requirements for that to have been properly notified.
I got it up as soon as we could. It's been posted in town physically.
The agenda was posted Monday.
Yeah. With the revision. When did the revision go up?
The agenda that you see on the screen there. This is the agenda that was on there Monday.
The updated agenda, I think I sent it up. I sent it yesterday or the day before.
This is Dunya Allen right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Allen.
It's on.
Is that the correct one?
That's the correct one right there.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that anything we're taking action on was posted at least 24 hours before the meeting.
24 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, we meet the 24.
Okay, yeah. Ideally 72, but if something came in late, then it can be 24. As long as we're at 24, I have no care.
Good. Okay.
And it's all part of the same CDP in a way. Yeah.
But yeah. I'm catching up here. I just want to make sure we're on the right side.
That's how I look at it.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other changes, amendments, comments regarding the agenda tonight? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Sorry, I have one more thing. My apologies for not catching this earlier, but it's the adjournment part of the agenda still says that the next regular meeting will be held today.
That's
great check. Great.
But sorry that I didn't see that earlier.
Okay, with the addition of the next council meeting in October, I don't have the date in front of me. With that addition as well, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as corrected, amended.
I'm sorry, that should be
October 3rd. Okay.
I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
I have a motion by Henry, second by Dan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Next item, approval of the August 1st, 2024 minutes. All of you should have received them, reviewed them. We're open for any comments. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move.
We have a motion by Dave. We have a second.
I'll second.
Second by Zach. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? One absent,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I was not here.
two absentees. Both Henry and I. No wonder it was such a quick meeting. Okay, item number 4, correspondence. This is a non-action item. It's for your information only. Any questions, comments? Not. We'll move on. Okay. Okay, item number 5, public comment on non-agenda items. A maximum of 3 minutes is reserved for members of the public to address the Wallala Municipal Advisory Council on items not listed on the agenda, and the total time for public input on a particular issue limited to 20 minutes. The council is prohibited from discussing or acting on matters not on the agenda, but may briefly respond or ask a question for clarification. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on a non-agenda item? Is there anybody in television land, Don, that's
I don't see anybody.
okay. Moving on. Mendocino County Sheriff or Code Enforcement report. I think we saw the sheriff and maybe Deputy Jensen. I'm not sure, but
good evening, Lieutenant Wyatt and Deputy Jensen on Sheriff Kendall could not make it this evening.
Well, good evening, GMAC. Sorry we weren't able to make it down today. Had some paperwork stuff we need to catch up on. So over the last 30 days, we've had a total of 19 calls for service. In the South Coastal area, 10 of those calls for service generated out of the Point Arena area and 9 generated out of the Wallala area. 5 reports were taken within the last 30 days, all are ranging from more or less the Point Arena area. A missing person who was located, warrant arrest, and then an assault case, which was forwarded to the DA for a review. We've had a dip in our calls for service over the last 30 days. It's slowed down a little bit since we've kind of finished up some of our big holiday weekends. There was some civil attempts made in the areas and multiple extra patrols down in the Wallala area. And as we continue to have the warmer weather over on the other side of the hill, we're still having an influx of people coming over to the coastal communities to escape the heat waves and try to enjoy our wonderful Mendocino coast. And if anyone's got any further questions, we would be glad to answer any.
any questions for our law enforcement team?
Just a quick question. Deputy Jensen, who are you joined by, just for the record?
Lieutenant Wyatt.
Lieutenant Wyatt, it's spelled W-Y-A-N-T.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
You're welcome.
All right.
And thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, Lieutenant Wyatt and Deputy Jensen, for your service to our community and your report.
You're very welcome.
Have a great evening.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks. Moving right along. Okay. Item number 7. Item number 7.1 is CDPM 2024-0004. Richard, how do you say that, David? Chilonco?
No, Dunya Alwyn is item 7.
What's
The revised one has all one first.
Oh. Sorry about that. Then we will go to CDP 2024-0031.
Sorry. The first one is CDP 2021-0052. There are 2 items for Dunn.
I'm going to recommend that the chair entertain that we consider both item 7.1, which is CDP 2021-0052, and item 7.2, CDP 2020-0034, as they're dealing with essentially the same property and the same project.
Any objection by the council? None? Yeah, go ahead. First staff report, and then we'll go to the comments from the applicant.
So this was a project that Dan and I have been dealing with. I don't know if you have a chance to walk in the meantime, but we've independently kind of reviewed it. And it was a difficult re-referral last month already because so much had changed. And now there are additional things that have to change based upon the new referral we have. So I know I actually accidentally met the applicant as I was driving by, because I drive by there every day, and saw a car there. So I stopped to say hi and met Danya Alwan personally. And she said she was going to attend the meeting tonight. So we'll maybe get a firsthand introduction to what she's dealing with. But the latest CDP is dealing with much of the remediation that's needing to occur on the property. So if you'll recall, when we first handled this back in 2021, I think Kevin and Don met the applicant, and she had a specific proposal at that time and was thinking about having the septic system relocated back at that time. Since then, it's an interesting parcel because it has a shared ingress egress driveway, not only with the neighbor to the north, but also with PG&E to be able to maintain the electrical lines that go across all those oceanfront properties in that area. So there was a informal agreement with the property owner to the north to access the subject property of the applicant. And that is no longer working out with the neighbor to the north. So the current situation is that the applicant is trying to develop her own access off of a shared driveway that comes off of the highway. And the shared driveway that comes off the highway, the best way to see this for everyone's benefit would be to see it on a map on the screen. But maybe we'll have the applicant show up here. Maybe she's ready on in the background, but is there any way we could look at that application on the website of the county, or last time we were able to get on it?
Okay, which CDP do we want to look at? There are two. It's 2024-0034 and 2024-0004.
It would be the 2024-0034.
34. Okay.
Which is the latest. And
give me a second, I'll pull that.
Yeah.
34.
Also, I'm here anytime you want to bring me in, you can. I'm here.
Hello, Mrs. Alban.
Hi.
Hi.
So if there's anything else, Robert or David, do you have anything else? Then we can have Ms. or Dan, I'm sorry. Do we have Ms. Alwan speak on it?
Yeah,
that would probably be a good place to start.
If she's ready, I think.
If I could mention, however, I had a conversation with the county planner, Mr. Clyden, who impressed upon me the urgency of the new referral, which is a proposal to restore the site as nearly as possible to original conditions. The site and project have been subject to notice of violation from the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and the county and the Regional Water Quality Control Board, the applicant, agree that the best way forward in a complicated situation is to proceed as rapidly as possible with the proposed site restoration in this CDP. So the request from the county is for us to vary from our usual approach, which is to assign a month in advance before making a recommendation, to vary from that approach and expedite a recommendation on the new restoration CDP this evening. The objective is to implement the restoration by the end of October, which is essentially a stop work period in coastal zones where there's sensitive habitat and locations that are subject to substantial precipitation that tends to affect drainage.
Okay. Any other comments from the council? If none, we'll hear from the applicant or any representatives. None? Ms. Alwan.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
So my situation is this: I was before you over a year ago with a project that didn't have my own driveway because I had an agreement with the neighbor to share a driveway. And I thought that that would hold, and did some little bit of development as a result of that not holding, which I now need to restore before I can move forward with my full on development. So what I have is I placed 2 shipping containers on my property and a small amount of gravel. So it adds up to about less than 1,000 square feet of damage to the property that I want to restore this October, November, and then, let it grow through the spring, and then build my project, which has been pending since 2021. So unless anybody has any questions, I don't want to take everybody's time with this. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into, but I'm here. I had a project pretty close to being approved. I understood it actually had been almost approved, and then did some advanced development that I need to backpedal on, and then move forward with my pretty modest 1,500 square foot structures.
Oh, I had a question, Danya. This is Robert. Are you pretty much prepared to go forward with this restoration proposal that was, I guess, prepared by Amy Wynn?
I am. I've been I've been gathering seed, and I'm absolutely ready to go. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Good, because that's pretty extensive there, what you have to do.
It's 1,000 square feet. It's not that much, but it's, I'm ready. I've lined people up. I have a place to put the containers on the trailer, and I'm prepared with plants, and I'm very anxious to move forward with my actual construction. So I'm very anxious to move forward with this restoration.
Okay.
Any other questions from council members?
I don't have one.
Do we have a recommended action?
I would make a motion to a motion to approve CDP 2024-0034 as stated with regards to this restoration proposal.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion by Robert, a second by Dan. Any discussions by council? Hearing none, all those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Robert, will you be drafting the information to the county? Thank you.
One more question.
Yes.
Robert, do you want to make a motion on 0052 for the moment?
Oh, okay. That we're putting that on hold.
That was added.
You could table that, but you could choose how to handle it, of course, but since it is on agenda, we probably should.
That's right. Okay, let me make a motion that we put that on hold or table it for the time being. CDP
2021-0052.
That's the one, yeah.
When would you envision us picking that back up, or would
Well,
waiting for this?
those that have, I would say she's got to get into this restoration proposal, and there's certain elements that she has to meet, the applicant, and it's going to be a year into it, so it might be a while.
Makes sense.
So that would be my motion, is to table it for the time being.
Yeah.
But for how long?
County review of.
Yeah, there's some monitoring requirements and things like that, so if that suffices as a motion,
We can do that.
that would be my motion.
Do we have a second to table?
Yeah, I'll second that too.
We have a motion second. The table, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Ms. Alwan, for your time and sharing your information, and good luck with your project.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Okay. 7.3. Local development permit 2024-0004. That's the right one. right?
Yeah.
Thank,
Oh, I would have told you.
it's, Sianco?
Yes, that's right. Chanko, yes.
Oh, and Fukusawa.
Yes.
And it's applicant request for standard coastal development permit modification of coastal development permit CDP 2019-0049 to increase the amount of grading from 330 cubic yards to a total of 925 cubic yards of grading, which would include drainage and reduce the average building height of the single family residence from 28 feet above the natural grade to 24 feet 6.5 inches above natural grade. Additional information was adopted by the coastal permit administrator to construct a single family residence and ancillary development. Associated improvements include carport and decking around the single family residence, a paved driveway, and construction of a bioswale and a curtain drain. Associated utilities include construction of a septic tank and a well. Council members Bach and Hayward were the council members tasked with reviewing that. So,
I think start by saying that Dave did all the legwork on this due to my busy lifestyle. So he filled me in on he walked the property, I didn't, but he filled me in on the details. So really still on the same page on the situation. And I'll let Dave take it away from here.
Okay, thank you.
Don, there you go.
A step ahead.
You're so good. You're many steps ahead of me. I'm just gonna pick this up. I haven't memorized, so I'm gonna just talk off the screen here. This is visible online. Okay. So quick background, lots of words. My apologies for crowding this slide, but this is an aerial image of the project site shown in a dark outline, located roughly between Iverson Lane and State Route 1, north of Iverson Road. The background here, as Chairman has described it, these are the words essentially right out of the application. I think everyone's fairly familiar with it. The two things in play here. One is that an original coastal development permit was adopted in 2021. This is after GMAC considered that and recommended its approval. And there was subsequently a building permit approved for the project that included grading and fill for the driveway and building foundation. The objective was to reduce the drop in elevation from the street down to that driveway and the carport, not a garage, but a carport. So that's essentially background on where we're at. Next slide, please. Quick summary of the site. It's about an acre. It's typical of other properties in this subdivision that is located near the intersection of Iverson Road and State Route 1. Elevation's about 100 to 260 feet above mean sea level. The site is gently to moderately sloped down toward the west. And the aerial photographs that are available in the referral and then site review show that it's a combination of mixed grassland and shrub canopy, some tree canopy, lots of invasive plants on the ground. I want to express my thanks to the applicant who allowed me to visit the site. Also have talked with me to support fact-finding to complement the information that was in the CDP package. Next slide, please. So some considerations. The approved CDP dealt with all of the development proposed. So today we're not revisiting that. The modification doesn't address the entire proposal de novo. It's focused on a couple elements. But everything that's under play in the construction project is as included in the approved CDP. The approved building permit included a fill prism, again, adequate to reduce the slope of that driveway and to reduce the elevation difference between the carport and the Iverson Lane access. There, however, was a discrepancy, and rather than get into finger pointing, I'm just going to observe that discrepancy objectively, that the building permit approved a quantity of fill that's necessary to achieve the desired slope reduction and elevation, getting the elevations correct. But in doing so, in specifying that change in vertical elevation and the necessary fill to achieve it, it created a discrepancy with the approved coastal development permit. That discrepancy, as earlier described, amounts to approximately threefold increase in the amount of fill placed on the site. That's an interesting number. Keep it in mind, and we'll continue. Now, building the project at that higher floor elevation, however, as originally designed, would result in a roof line that would exceed the 28-foot height maximum in county code. So those two approvals created a problem for the applicant. Next slide, please. So the purpose of this modification, this coastal development permit modification, are to align the volume of fill needed to achieve the specification of the building permit with the coastal development permit. So they update that coastal development permit to, again, have the same volume of fill, so we're not kind of working at cross purposes in these various permit approvals. And the other one is to reduce the height of the proposed building so that when it's placed on top of that slightly higher fill elevation, county code for height maximum will not be exceeded. So those are the two things that are in play in this modification. I have to note, however, and there are a number of people in the room with us today, that there is some controversy in the neighborhood. There are some concerns having to do with changes in project designs, and apparent change in height of the foundation fill and the associated elevation of building visual profile. So if we raise the height of that building, neighbors are concerned that we have to look seen or view of the ocean will be affected by a larger obstruction. There's also concerns about the competence of the fill material and prism structure. So what you see in these photographs are essentially the conditions as they are today, with a construction site that's gone fallow for essentially over winter, and as a result is now covered with invasive weeds and other plants. But the presence of precipitation on that fill has removed some of the fines from that ground surface, and so people who've observed the material in that foundation prism are concerned that maybe something's up with this. There are also concerns about potential sedimentation, erosion and sedimentation that might affect a wetland that's at the bottom of that site. Image in the lower left shows vegetation, ground covering vegetation sort of toward the left. It's a kind of a wet spot on the property. So there's concerns that whatever's happening there may be impacting that wetland, as well as a constructed drainage swale, again, off to the left of the lower left photograph. There's a tree canopy there. There's silt fencing and construction fencing there. And there's worry that as this site has gone fallow and as water has hit that fill prism, that there's potential erosion and then sediment going into that swale. A few residents that I encountered on my site visit were also concerned about communication between them and the proponents of the project, as well as county staff. And the hope today is that we're able to exchange information that will help the community understand what the applicants have in mind and the likely outcomes from this particular permit process. Next slide, please. So my assessment, looking at the documentation in the referral, it's clear that this fill has been placed. It's an engineer design, and it was placed and then inspected by the engineering firm that did the design, and they signed off on it. So while it looks a little different than it probably was when it was placed because of the presence of water falling on it and some of those fines washing out, so you see exposed cobble, that fill prism is competent based on a licensed civil engineer's wet stamped inspection report. The erosion and sedimentation controls are intact. Based on my review, which again found them intact, I didn't see any evidence of siltation. That has also been assessed by a competent professional who has documented the continuing success of those erosion control measures on the site. We've got a bunch of invasive plants, no big surprise. When you place fill, oftentimes that fill carries a bunch of seed matter with it, stuff pops up. But as soon as we take the natural vegetation off a site, seeds are constantly blowing everywhere. And there's all kinds of invasive plants in our environment. Well, those have established. They had a nice wet winter, and so all kinds of stuff's popping up. That's a problem, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The building design has been modified. The referral package shows that modification that results in a height above the public street elevation. So if one's standing at the street, the height from that elevation up to the top of the ridge line of the building, the new design has that up at 20 foot 6 inches, which is approximately 25 feet above natural grade. Again, that grade is sloping downward, so one has to do some calculations. However, the bottom line is that the maximum building height above average natural elevation, which is the methodology that's specified in county code, is under 28 feet, which is the maximum code allows at the site. Next slide, please. So bottom lines. It looks like this is the type of development that the county anticipated at this location. This is a residential subdivision. The site is not being modified. Both general plan and coastal program and zoning anticipate this type of development on the site. As I mentioned earlier, the technical assessments that were conducted by Wind Coastal Planning and Biology and SHN Civil Engineers, as well as design changes that are reflected in the referral packet, appear to be done correctly and competently, and there are recommendations that seem reasonable and practicable. GMAC, as a matter of policy and practice, defers to county staff for code compliance. That's not in our remit. However, we've been asked to make a recommendation on the basis of the information in the referral and information gathered on site and in conversations with the applicant and in conversations with people in the neighborhood. My recommendation is that we suggest the county approve this application with the recommendations that are contained in the technical studies that I've made reference to here. And that's it for my slides.
Okay, any questions from council at this point in time? Henry?
How was the discrepancy identified between the building permit and the CDP? Yeah.
That's a great question. My guess is it was, and I'm gonna guess because I don't know, and perhaps the applicant knows and they'll be able to offer you a specific answer, but it's not unlikely that this was as a result of a site inspection. That once that fill was placed and evaluated and signed off by the civil engineer, county staff may have detected a change in elevation. That may have also triggered a reevaluation of the volume of fill that was necessary to meet the building permit specifications. But beyond that speculation on my part, that's a question that the applicant may be best positioned to answer.
One more. So the fill is, you said three and a bit times what was approved in the
about 3 times.
Yeah. So I'm not familiar enough with any of the repercussions of that. But so what was approved in the development permit, is there some different standard based on the amount of fill, or is that just it was approved for a certain amount and we don't know what would have happened with the original, if the correct amount had been specified originally, or would there have been an?
Excellent question. I'm glad you asked that because I failed to talk about it in my presentation. So two things. One is the footprint. There was a footprint approved in the original CDP for the placement of that fill in the entire construction project. So it's that footprint which distinguishes parts of that property that would be affected by construction and parts of the property that would not be touched. That footprint has not changed. So the fill, the additional fill was placed within the approved CDP approved footprint. So that's great. And the erosion and sedimentation controls that were required by that CDP are in place and they're functioning properly. The other change, because you put more stuff in essentially the same horizontal cross section, is the possible change in the slope of that fill. And that slope was evaluated by the engineering company that designed it and ultimately approved it. So however that slope is presented, and it appears to be between 2-to-1 and 3-to-1, based on the type of material that's specified and the level of compaction and how it's placed and structured. Again, the civil engineer signed off on it. I don't know, as a matter of my own practice, what the required slope would be for additional height fill, but again, it's been signed off by a competent assigned professional.
And they believe that the sedimentation and erosion controls that were part of the initial permit are adequate to cover the change in fill volume.
Yes, in fact, those controls were applied to that taller, more bulkier fill volume, and they're still in place and functioning properly.
So they just to clarify that, so they adjusted the sedimentation and erosion controls to accommodate the new fill.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Any other questions from council? Hearing none, Mr. Sianko or
Yes.
Ms.
Yes.
Fukuzawa, sorry about that. It's your time. So tell us about your project and what you're looking for. And if you have any other representatives here, we'd love to hear from them.
Thank you so very much. I'm Richard Chanko. Thank you to the council for inviting Natsuki and me today. And also thank you for being detailed in your description and clarifying some very important points. The notion of living in such a beautiful Anchor Bay neighborhood fills us with great anticipation and love for the beauty of the area. We purchased the land 8 years ago, and we've spent countless hours with biologists and other professionals, as well as our great builder, Greg Chamberlain, all of whom we appreciate so much for their knowledge and encouragement. We believe that this is not unreasonable for us to build in this subdivision, and our honest intention is to build an attractive, comfortable home that our neighbors will approve, while absolutely conforming and complying with all county zoning code requirements and remaining steadfastly sensitive to the environment, our environment. To that end, we've been careful to ensure that in our design, the exterior finish materials and colors, as well as roofing, lighting, landscaping conform to and comply with the county and neighborhood standards. The house will be 1,400 plus square feet, and the design has gone through some dramatic changes. And as you said, we've changed the height of the building by lowering the roof line as to comply with county zoning code 20.308.025 for building height, which previously was a legitimate issue that you mentioned. And you gave the dimensions of the east face of the house as being 25 feet above natural grade. And we feel that the visual impact would be close to that number when looking from Iverson Lane toward the house, or less, as the house already sits on a downslope. The slope and the placement of the building location mandated by the biologist who studied our property in detail prompted us to seek advice from several professional firms, including SHN engineers. And in the end, we were told we needed to raise the foundation by adding fill, raising the pad to allow our driveway to conform with the county maximum driveway slope requirement. You might imagine we didn't really want to do this. And by the way, even with the import, you mentioned this, even with the import of much fill, the footprint of the building has not changed since receiving approval from coastal and county, nor has the fill spilled into the environmentally sensitive area. The location of the placement of the building has not changed either, all per the biologist's mandate. A recent letter from Wynn Coastal Planning and Biology can attest to all of this, and the fill compaction has been tested as well. It's taken us many years to get to today. We are proposing a design that now conforms and complies objectively to the county zoning code for height and all else. And we know that our new home, when it's finished, and hopefully soon so that the neighbors don't have to see the raw building site much longer, that it will be a visually attractive and environmentally sound addition to an already beautiful, evolving neighborhood. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak, and thank you to our neighbors for protecting and advocating for this wonderful neighborhood. Thank you.
Anyone else online that would like to speak on this topic? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to us. And I know that we have some members of the public. Please, yeah, we're in a nice large room. Dave?
There was one question I think it's important that Henry asked, and I just wanted to make sure I directed the applicant's attention to it. Richard, my colleague Henry asked, how was the discrepancy between the CDP and the building permit discovered? It's essentially the foundation pad elevation and fill.
Well, I can't really say that I know for certain, but my guess is that there are pretty smart people in the neighborhood who looked at the plans and probably did the measurements and figured it out and made it known that there was a discrepancy. And we're actually very grateful to the person or the people who did that, because as much as we would like to have built the house already, I know that if we had built that house and it was too high, the inspectors would have told us to take it down. They would have said no. And so we're happy that whoever caught the mistake, that they caught it before we built the roof, for sure.
We'll open it up for public comment. There's really no order to whoever would like to speak. The only thing I ask is that you say your name and spell it so our secretary can write that down. Are you ready, Dave?
I am ready.
Okay, so whoever would like to stand up first, we'd love to hear you. Which microphone do you put that in?
Going forward here, I think I'll go. So just, all right, talk to the.
All right. So first of all, my name is Catherine with the C, Catherine. Last name Palmer, as in Arnold, Palmer. My dad always told us he was our uncle, but he wasn't. And I actually live at 47141 Iverson Point Road. So I'm not in the Iverson Lane or Iverson Road specific neighborhood. I am here speaking on behalf of and at the request of 5 property holders who live in the Iverson Lane and Iverson Road neighborhood, several of whom could not be here tonight, unfortunately, because they are on long planned vacations. And thankfully to David, the neighbors actually found out that this referral had been made just about a week ago. Because although the neighbors, the 5 property holders, had all submitted numerous complaints and materials to the county and asked for notice from the county about any public hearings, they did not receive any notice of this hearing. So we're further handicapped by the fact that I am not a construction person or an engineer or can really follow very much of cubic yards or any of that. And unfortunately, 2 of the property holders who would have been very, very useful here, one of whom is a contractor, the other of whom is an engineer, are some of the ones who are not here today. So first of all, we'd like to thank very much GMAC and Dave for letting us know about this and giving us the opportunity. I will speak, we have some collective talk points that the neighbors want to submit to GMAC for consideration, and 1 or 2 of the other property holders may briefly speak to something. So first of all, we'd like to let everybody know here that the 5 households involved are all full-time residents of Mendocino County and taxpayers of Mendocino County. And some of the households, in fact, have more than 1 resident, more than 1 taxpayer. All of the 5 property holders, as I stated, have submitted numerous complaints to the county and various packages of materials to the county. So here are the points, the summary points, because it can only be summary right here from the property holders. Point 1, the 272 pages of materials submitted by the county, you know, GMAC didn't choose those, but the county submitted 272 pages of material to GMAC for review and input. These 272 pages do not include or refer to any of the complaints or materials submitted by the property holders to the county. The property holders are concerned that GMAC is not in a position to make a fully informed assessment without having had the ability to review the complaints and materials submitted by the resident property holders. While the property holders appreciate the opportunity to provide brief comments here to GMAC and appreciate the attention you folks are all paying to all of these things, the property holders believe a fully informed assessment cannot be made without a review of all the complaint materials submitted to the county and also to the Coastal Commission, because they've been submitted to both. That's the first summary point. The second summary point, and I have to point out something that is certainly news to me and I believe may well be news to several of the people here and some of the property holders who are not here. Dave, you referred to a building permit with approval for fill. That is not something that was known to the property holders. The property holders, I don't believe, have seen that building permit. And it's one of the problems that the property holders have had in terms of communications from the owners about proposals that are being submitted for amendment. So I think that's very, very important. And I wish that the neighbors, one of whom is a contractor, the other of whom is an engineer, and the engineer has paid particular attention to a lot of these things, were able to be here, because I don't believe they are aware of or have seen that building permit. With that in mind, the second bullet point, since we have not been aware of that, and again, this is just, we just started looking at all this stuff in the last week because we didn't know about this meeting. So what we have been able to look at, we believe, this is point 2, that the construction project violates the original permit, which was issued by the county. And the original permit did not provide for or authorize any filling to be done on the site. And a point of reference to support that is the October 21, 2019 biological report of compliance submitted to the county by Wind Development, the owner's consultant, which made clear on page 3 of that October 2019 report that Wind Development did not assess any filling issues or filling material issues because none of that was relevant to the project being considered for permit approval. And that you can see on page 3 of the October 21, 2019 Wind Development. So in the then current knowledge as of a week ago of the property holders' second bullet point is that in violation of the permit, and at least apparently contrary to what was stated in the October 21, 2019 report of compliance, the owner subsequently imported between at least 10 to 15 semi-truckloads of fill to the site after removing several hundred feet of coastal site fill. And then this imported fill was compacted to create an artificial 10-foot building pad. That's point 2. Point 3, the modification permit, the one permit that the property holders are currently aware of, seeks to increase the quote rating, close quote, to a total of 925 cubic feet and reduce the building height to 24 feet, 6.5 inches, quote, above natural grade, close quote. The property holders believe this should not be allowed. First, the original permit, as we just stated, did not allow for any grading, did not. Second, the proposed building still would not be on natural grade, but rather on a pad, either 8 to 10 feet of imported fill. Third, even with the proposed reduction in the height of the building would be more than 32 feet above natural grade. Again, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a contractor, but people have looked at this and this is what we're putting forth for the committee to consider. Fourth point, Dave spoke to and Mr. Cianco spoke to the mitigation measures and materials that have been undertaken by the owners, specifically the wattles or baffles, wherever they are and all that stuff. Well, one of the property holders who could not be here is Mr. Hervé, H-E-R-V-E, Pastre, P-A-S-T-R-E. And he owns the lot to the immediate south, the lot and home to the immediate south of the site. And in fact, he built with all the appropriate permits probably about 5 or 6 years ago. So he and the other property holders would like to state as a fourth point that some of the mitigation measures and materials that they've referred to and that are on the site and that were put there by the owners and or their consultants actually encroach on Mr. Pastre's property. They're on his property. So if you look at the July 27, 2023 Wind Development report, or not report, it's really a letter submitted, I believe, either to the county or to Mr. Cianco from Wind Development. One thing to note in there is that the report itself, and this is in 2023, noted, quote, the extensive fill, which was indeed more than was imagined when envisioning the potential impacts to the site, close quote. That's Wind Development. However, the report then went on to state that mitigation had been made by, among other things, quote, temporary construction fencing, straw wattles, and silt fencing installed in the proper locations between the construction footprint and sensitive natural resources on the other side, close quote. And it attached a photo at figure 1 of some of these mitigation materials. Mr. Pastre and the other property holders would like to point out that if you look at figure 1, and we have some photos that we'd like to submit that show better color of what is what's described on figure 1, specifically the construction fencing, straw wattles, and silt fencing. Those are all actually located on Mr. Pastre's property. And it was done without his permission, improper placement. And if it is accurate that no sediment or fill has entered the Escher stream, it is very possible this is because the mitigation materials were improperly placed on Mr. Pastre's property. And he would like GMAC to know and the county to know that in fact, over time, sediment and fill has gone onto his property. And I should have stated when I was talking about the, the height, that we actually have one of the other, so that's specific with respect to Mr. Pastre, but all of the relevant property holders share that concern and complaint. And with respect to the second objection that I mentioned in terms of the property, the building itself being more than 28 feet above natural grade, we also have a diagram with a photo of the 10-foot high imported pad, which is not natural grade, that was in fact submitted to the county by the other gentleman who couldn't be here, the engineer, and we would propose to submit that as well. So a few other things that I'm almost done that the property holders think it's very important for GMAC to know is, and again, this is asking for further investigation. It appears that the owner's septic control system may well have been placed on the lot owned by the lot owner immediately to the north of this property. We have some photographs of that and are happy to submit it. We're just asking that it be looked at and investigated. Another thing that the property holders asked to be investigated is it's not clear whether the property marker that the owners have on the property on the north side is correctly placed. Again, one of the people who could not be here tonight thinks that there is a different original property marker, would like that to be investigated, because if there is, and if the original property marker is in fact the accurate property marker, then there would be an encroachment further into the lot owner on the north side. So seventh point is the original permit approved construction of the residence within a 50-foot buffer of the Escher stream, which is located near the owner's property. It's also located near Mr. Pastre's property. This 50-foot buffer, as you folks know better than me and all of us, was an exception to the usual required buffer of 100 feet within an Escher stream. It is the belief of the property owners that the planned building does not comply with the 50-foot buffer. And we request that this be investigated, because by looking from Mr. Pastre's property with tape measure, the planned building site appears to be within 30 feet of the Escher stream in one location and 15 feet of the Escher stream in another location. And then finally, I should have said that with respect to the septic controls, I think I said that we have some photographs we'd like to submit. And then finally, standing from Mr. Pastre's property, there is a concern that the septic tank, which is already on the property, may have begun to sink and may have sunk already a foot, and it's located in or near the Escher wetlands on the property. So again, we understand that you were given a referral. We don't think any of the significant issues that have been addressed to the county were placed before GMAC. We're sorry about that. We think they're relevant. We think they're important. We think they need to be investigated. We would like to submit these talking points to GMAC together with the diagram and the few photos that we've submitted. And then, unless there are any questions for me, I believe at least one and two of the property holders who were able to be here would like to speak.
Thank you.
Chair Kevin?
Yes.
I have a question. Normally, and this kind of means we have a 3-minute limit to public comment by members of the public. And I would just like to know whether we're going to enforce that or not today. And if not, would you explain why?
Well, that's for public comment on non-agenda items.
Non-agenda.
This is public comment.
But on an agenda item.
But still, even the county enforces a 3-minute limit on any public comment.
I think because the nature of the item, and I believe the importance of getting public input, I think that council approval will go ahead and remove that 3 minutes. And those that wish to speak, a reasonable to share, because they're not only speaking on behalf of themselves, but it's not like they're also representing other interested parties as well. So I'm open to the wishes of the rest of the council, but I would recommend waiving the 3-minute public comment time.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I'll say previous versions of the bylaws had established sort of operational principles for these council reviews. We removed those from the bylaws on the advice of town council. The 3-minute limit in our bylaws is specifically for public comment on agenda items. We don't have it listed.
It'll be your recording. So any other comments?
Yeah, I mean, based upon the nature of the application and then how Mrs. Palmer mentioned that she's stating comments for multiple people, and then just thinking into the past, how we've been flexible, like the chair has said, he's being flexible in this when it came to whether it was the proponent or the opponents of a certain project. We always granted additional time, not to mention what Henry has said about our latest version of the PILI law. So I'm all okay with it.
Dan or Zach? No. Okay, we're moving forward.
One last thing, I hope that we will then.
Absolutely, absolutely. And actually, the applicant has, if I'm not mistaken, up to 10 minutes, isn't it?
We don't have.
Okay, and so, so, okay, anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Let's get the same rule, state your name, spell it.
My name is Gene Lopes. I'm one of the 5 residents over there is going to lose total view of the ocean if this thing continues the way it is. I won't repeat anything that she's already talked about. I think that's one thing that Mendocino County should know, that I have a very large family who is very well upset, and 2 of my members of families are attorneys with their own law firms, and they're going to get into litigation if this thing continues like they wouldn't believe. And I want to thank you guys for allowing us to come here and express what we have to say, because they didn't tell us about any of this stuff. They were supposed to notify everybody within 300 feet. This thing's been going on and on and on, and it's just totally ridiculous. So I won't take up any more of your time. I think Mendocino County ought to know we're coming.
Well, thank you for taking the time. But, okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for giving us an opportunity. Yes, my name is Alina Reyes, Alina Reyes. Sorry, I'll speak quietly because I have, you know, a little bit, my voices get lost. So my name is Alina Reyes. I'm a full-time resident in the area, and I'm 100% impacted by this building. So I would like to state that I've been a full-time resident for 5 years, and I'm a taxpayer. And I invested a lot of money and time into making my property my dream home. And my property will significantly depreciate in value if this building, this construction project will proceed with multiple violations. I submitted multiple complaints with the Department of Planning and Building Services regarding California code violation, California code violations, and I have like a copy of one of them. It contains 8 pages. I never received any replies, any follow-ups, or anyone. None of their Planning and Building Department representative talked to me. None of the owners of this project consider that it's important to talk to the direct next door neighbors. Being the homeowner and paying property taxes, I'm also a business owner, and I have a full-time business that I run a short-term rental for 3 years. It brings me completely livelihood, so I completely depend on the income from this business. And just to clarify how successful it is, I've been running it with business license for 3 years. I've been paying business improvement district taxes. I've been paying transient occupancy taxes, and I pay so much taxes from that business that I've been elected to Mendocino County Tourism Commission Board last year, and I'm actively involved in promoting tourism in Mendocino County. And since I'm actively involved in my business and promoting tourism, I'm also with permission of neighbors or a pastor who owns property near this construction project. I've been allowed to go and investigate. I'm not an engineer, but I'm concerned about my own income because that's basically, I'm dependent on that. And I took pictures of the field dirt, and I did with permission of my neighbors, and I did my own measurements. I'm not an engineer again, but I know how to, count the feet. So the owner of the property, Richard Sionko, his speech was very beautiful. He said they add 3 feet and reduces the house for 4 feet. But according to my measurements, it's very simple. It's like 12 to 15 feet. And I submitted all the measurements, never received any replies. And according to my own calculations, the field dirt is approximately 45 to 90 to 12 feet height, and it would be at 1,800 cubic yards to the construction site. So basically, it goes down, but as you can tell from this picture, they put so much dirt that it's almost make the property as a street level. And I read multiple pages of the project, and it's clearly stated that height should be above natural grade. It's clearly stated that. And also, just to briefly clarify that when I know the property owners of that lot, they've been purchased this property for 8 years ago. I purchased my property 5 years ago. But on Iverson Landing, there's a rule that we have to sign CCRs, and that states that all owners had to sign this document when purchasing the property, that they shouldn't block the ocean views. So basically, they want to reduce the project for 4 feet, but they already filled it with dirt 12 to 15 feet above the natural grade. If it's sink down, it means that all of the dirt fall into the seasonal creek that we have. And if they will proceed with building with violations, my business will be fully impacted and my full-time income will be impacted because my business is, I'm able to make income because the ocean view that I have. And if they build above the grade that on a project, I will lose my income because that's the only reason why people can't stay. So I would like to please ask you to investigate all of this. And if you need a copy of my original complaint, I have 8 pages for you to review. A lot of them never been mentioned here. I just don't want to take more time. So thank you so much. And yes, on David Spack slides, there's like my house, right? So it's like it immediately blocks my view, like of my business and my personal too. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? I know we have some online. We will definitely get to you, sir.
Can I just submit this?
Absolutely.
This is what I refer to. I don't know what your procedure is. Okay. Yeah, this has the talk points and diagram and photographs that refer to talk points.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience? I'd like to say one more thing. Absolutely. I have a question. Why? All they gotta do is remove the illegal dirt that's not posted. You know, on the national grid at 28 feet, and everybody will be happy. I don't understand why I gotta get my attorney involved in all this stuff and mitigate for the next 10 years. All they gotta do is remove that illegal soil. Hopefully soil to begin with. And build on the original grade like it was supposed to be from the very beginning, and go on 28 feet. And they'll have a nice house that's big open, will be able to see a roof and the open, and then everybody's happy. Okay. It's gonna go on for 10 years, I think. Well, thanks very much for your comment. We have a.
But just for the record, it's GGENE. So LOPEN.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, and I see we have one person in the audience who would like to speak that is not representing the applicant. So please unmute yourself, state your name, spell it for the record, and we'd love to hear your comments.
My name is David Weller, W-E-L-L-E-R. I have the 2 lots just north of this. And I am also planning on building and getting ready to go through this same process. I purchased this property with the anticipation to build, and I paid more money as far as because it is a ocean view, and that's exactly why we paid what we did for these properties. When I signed my contracts, there were no CC&Rs. So I'm not quite sure as far as the other person, but that's not what was part of the legal description and what was not part of the sale. So as long as we are meeting the requirements of the county and the city, we do need to be able to build. We're doing it conservatively. We are meeting the requirements, and we are also trying to live our dreams and being able to be a part of the community and to be developers as far as to have our land and be able to live on it as we would like to. Thank you.
Anybody online? No. Okay, so we'll be closing public comments and bringing it back to the council. Richard, we'll open it up to you first. would you like to respond?
Well, thank you very much, and thanks to everybody for voicing your concerns. It is easy enough to go and measure the fill, and that's, I think, something that Dave from the council has done. You've been there and you've seen it. It's not 12 feet high. It's not even 10 feet high. And it has been compacted, and it is safe, and it has been tested by the engineering firm. And I'm not worried about the safety of the fill, and I'm not worried about the safety of the environmental, of the ESHA zone. However, we are monitoring it carefully, and if something does occur, we will take care of it immediately. And also, if the county finds something wrong with our amendment proposal, we will take care of that too. We certainly don't expect to build something that is illegal. We don't want to build anything that's illegal, or we don't want to build anything that's inappropriate either. And yes, we're sensitive to our neighbors who have great views. We understand that. We've owned the property for 8 years, as Dave Weller said, with the intention to build. We were told that we could build. We paid a lot of money so that we could have this particular view. Nobody else bought the property. We bought the property. And we're super excited to have the property. We love the view. We love the neighborhood. We want to be good neighbors. We want to be a part of the community, as David Weller just said. We want to be helpful to our neighbors, and we want to make sure that we keep the integrity of the land as best as possible. We had no choice but to bring in fill because of the driveway situation, and so we acted on that. And we didn't do it in exactly the best way, and so we were called out by the county. We have made changes to accommodate the mistakes that we made, and we've lowered the roof line. And I would just say that whatever house that would be built in that spot, no matter if it were 20 feet tall or 18 feet tall or 16 feet tall, any house would probably block some of the view of some of the people. And if that's not true, I'm very surprised. Any house would be probably not desired by some of the neighbors, and I understand that. But we did buy the land with the intention to build, and we want to do it right. And sorry if I risk repeating myself, forgive me if I do, but we just want to be good stewards of the land as best we can, and we want to be a part of this community. I don't think everything will pan out in the complaints if the county goes and checks up on every one of those complaints. I would be happy if the county would check on the complaints. I would be happy. Thank you. We can't hear anything, sorry.
Briefly like to say that while I appreciate what Mr. Cianco said, it's not all about the view. And what you heard from a lot of people, and unfortunately two that would know the most and speak the best couldn't be here. But the fact of the matter is there's been no addressing of the fact that some of those mitigation materials that supposedly stop sediment from going into ESHA are improperly placed on Mr. Pastre's property. There's been no discussion about the septic controls apparently residing on another lot owner's property, or about the correct placement of the property marker, or the fact that it will not be 28 feet above natural grade. Thank you.
Okay, It is now closed for
Can
public.
I'd like to. Can I add one more point to that, please?
Yeah, Ms. Waller, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is exactly the reason why there are agencies that do the actual zoning, that do the actual survey and measurements to make sure those are objectively done. So other residents going by and saying, I think this is not adequately spaced or in the wrong place, that's why all those schematics are done. That's why the professionals do those and measure it down to the inch. That's why they have the certificates. That's why they have the knowledge. That is their job. That's why they are signed off, certified by the state, by the county, and by the city.
Public comments, I'm bringing it back. There's no more comments from the applicants. I bring it back to the council for discussion and action. So we'll go around the table, start with David. Do you have anything that you want to?
The secretary was going to note that we received comments, package of comments. Ma'am, you mentioned that you have material. If you want to leave them with me, you do so. And what I will do is I'm going to say clearly the county has not authorized all the to act in dealing with appraisal. Our job is essentially to chair your review. Our job is the chair is out for you to sit in to create a place where we can have a discussion, ideally agreement, but more realistically, whatever has to happen in conversation. But our job is also to forward materials that we receive to the county planner, and I promise you I'll do that, along with the GMAC recommendations. I'll also mention to the county planner that this discussion has been recorded in verbatim, and that he will have access to it, as well as access provided to his colleagues in the regulatory world. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. That's it. I don't have anything else to add about the analysis.
I think that if there's any encroachments of utilities or materials on anyone's property, I think that it's something that should be investigated by the county and the county officials that can discern that by walking on site. I understand, you know, as someone that grew up in this community, what it's like to see something new happen in your neighborhood. So I really understand your concerns. And I think the bottom line is that, you know, there can always be better communication between the county and the residents. And I think that's a big factor in the sort of, you know, boiling point you guys are at now, the frustration of, you know, not getting the information you wanted or needed in good time. I think that's fair. So I really just think if there's any capacity that the county has to put their eyes on it further than what GMAC can do, you know, and expertise to acknowledge the complaints, especially the ones that involve physical encroachments on someone else's property.
Yeah, well, first of all, you know, I do appreciate, you know, some of the comments made tonight. And however, I think a lot of the sort of technical challenges to the project that were raised over various details, those are difficult, I think, for us, GMAC, as a body to really evaluate. And I think it's up to the county to do that, quite frankly. I know I'm not in a position to, you know, evaluate these challenges myself. But I do understand concerns of the neighborhood, certainly, about a project like this. I think that's fairly normal. However, you know, we do have a property owner here that wants to build a house on their property, and provided, in my mind at least, if, you know, the project complies with all the county codes and passes inspections and everything, then I think it has to be allowed to go forward. So that's basically where I stand.
Okay, Robert?
Okay, I have a number of things here. First and foremost, I'm concerned that the neighbors weren't notified. And I went back through the CDP and page for page, and I didn't notice a mailing list as we usually receive or have. I've been on GMAC for 20 plus years, and I've always noticed the mailing list. And here we are as a municipal advisory council, we represent our constituency, and we try to watch out for everybody's interests. Not to mention just that we're an animal of the county, but here I don't see that the neighbors got notified, and that kind of bothers me the most. I also heard it from you as neighbors. But I also want to say that GMAC at many times in its past has not received even CDPs as a body here from the county for parcels or development proposals within the Iverson Landing subdivision. And that's kind of inherent with what the county, we've had many times over the years, myself as past chair, other past chairs, our past secretaries have had to send the county, because they have such a turnover in personnel many times, we've had to send them a copy of our actual jurisdictional area, which goes to Hearn Gulch. And so there could be a confusion, or it could be a mix-up there too, is all I want to say, okay? Hearn Gulch is actually, our boundaries coincide with the South Coast Fire District, okay? And so I'm thinking that maybe there's where some confusion lies. I don't know, but we go onto the county website nowadays religiously and look for CDP referrals as a body, and see what's being proposed within our jurisdiction. So one thing that I thought of was it would have been nice to see story poles go up. We've asked for those many times over the years, over the decades, where controversial or potentially controversial projects, neighbors were concerned. We wanted to see what is the real true height of a piece going to be, of a parcel going to be. So we would ask for the applicant to place, or for the county to ask the applicant to place story poles. So we ourselves are not code enforcement, as I think David pointed out. So I don't believe any of us should be going out there measuring fill, was one thing I thought I heard somebody say. Also, Iverson Landing does not have what they can call, as they do in the Sea Ranch, view corridor restrictions. So when you purchase, and this is getting into real estate, but when you purchase property in a subdivision like this, or along Iverson Road or wherever, you better be watching out for yourself what somebody could potentially build in your view corridor of the ocean. Because there is no set description of where you can or cannot build into that corridor or into that view shed. But without getting into the further details of encroachment or whatever else was already mentioned, that's kind of what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about the complaints of potential boundary violations, property boundary violations. That's not in the purview of GMAC. That's up to surveyors. It's up to real estate attorneys, people like that to deal with. And I'm not going to make any recommendations based on that information, just acknowledge that it does concern me. Other than that, I'm also concerned that neighbors apparently did not get notified, as they usually are, and that some stuff was somewhat perhaps missing from what we received, if there was any annotation of that was not included in the paperwork that was referred to.
I have a few questions that I'd like to ask about that in the audience. So first, for the asking questions, so I think there are several, points of fact that have been discussed here, we, as mentioned elsewhere, are not in any position to judge the factual nature of those questions. But I thought I might ask. A few that jumped out at me. One is the encroachment onto adjacent properties for both the mitigation measures and the septic control system. I'd like to ask the applicant if you have a response to those specifically.
Thank you for that question. And if that were true, that would concern me greatly. I would be very confused as to why that would have happened, and we would fix that immediately. I can enlist Greg Chamberlain. I'll ask him to go to the site and take a look. In the end, the county should probably follow up on that so that we're absolutely sure where the boundaries are, although we are, but the county should check on those things too. But we can certainly do our part to make sure that that doesn't happen. Thank you.
Similar question. Another sort of point of fact that we can't judge, but where the idea that the building encroaches on the 50-foot ESHA buffer zone to 30 feet and 15 feet, according to Ms. Reyes. Do you have a response to that specifically as well?
I am not aware of that.
And then something that I'm just trying to clarify for myself. So was there a substantial quantity of unpermitted fill that has already been deployed on the property?
It was not permitted by the CDP, but it was permitted by the county planning and building.
But not by the Coastal Commission, not through the CDP process.
That is correct, and that was a mistake that we made very regretfully. And that's why we were shut down, and it's a terrible thing. And the reason, as I stated before, for that fill was so that we would comply with the maximum driveway slope requirement that the county mandated for us. It has to be less than 20% slope.
Yeah, I understand that. And so has the county asked you to do anything about the fact that there's a bunch of unpermitted fill?
That's a good question. They asked us to resubmit. They asked us to submit an amendment for that.
Basically to try to get a permit after the fact for the work that's already been done.
That is correct. A permit after the fact, but with testing and with signing off of various professional agents such as SHN and Wind Coastal to validate that it has not harmed the ESHA.
Excuse me, may I add something? Because I just want to make sure about one thing, that when we submitted a application to Mendocino County Building and Planning, it was our oversight, but we didn't realize that this discrepancy between the plans, because it is our first time building a building. And the county gave us the permit to go ahead with our airness plans. So when the county gave us the building permit, we were still not aware of the discrepancy between the two plans. And we just went ahead and gave the plan to Greg Chamberlain to start building based on the permit that we received from both counties, both CDP and the county, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm sympathetic to the complexity of the process, and obviously, the county shouldn't be issuing permits that have discrepancies between them. I wish I were more surprised that was a mistake that the county made.
I agree. They shouldn't be doing that. I agree.
And then there does seem to be a question about, so the height requirements are based on the natural grade. And it seems like there is now, as a result of the fill, some disagreement about what actually the natural grade is. Is that still determinable? Is there like, yeah, do you have in your previous documents exactly where that is from previous surveys? Do we know, like,
yes,
is there factual backup for what the natural grade is supposed to be?
Yes, and that's a important question. We hired Richard Seal to make a topographical map of the build site before we did anything. And we have the original grade documented in the topographical map. The height of the building was calculated based on the average height above natural grade, the average height above natural grade. And it was calculated very meticulously by people who do this professionally. I did not calculate that. I would never be able to do that as a musician. We had our professional company, SHN Engineers, calculate that, and it comes in at 27.73 average feet above natural grade.
My last question is for those in the audience. And unfortunately, I think I already know the answer, and you've touched on it. But has the county interacted with you at all? Responded to any of these things? Acknowledged receipt of any of these complaints, materials? Allegations of. Okay. But no response from the county about the nature of them.
And any of the follow-ups. Any of my complaints I've been delivering in person, and they were very hesitant to put a stamp on a front page that they received. And any follow-ups basically been completely ignored since like early 2023. We've been talking to this engineer, Jesse. Yeah. And her response, why do you ever contact me about this? And there is like no point of contacts. Who can I talk to regarding these issues? But she was the one who approved that. So it's very hard to.
And I think part of the problem, and we really appreciate honestly everything and all the time that you guys, this is Kathy Palmer again, are spending on this, but you can see what part of the problem is, right? It is these property holders who have invested substantial sums in their properties and in their lives here have submitted numerous complaints about the height. They've submitted, you're right, none of us, I'm not an expert, and Mr. Weller can talk about experts, but there have been very detailed complaints with pictures, with diagrams submitted to the county. No responses to the concerns about the height of the building or about these other things. And instead, there's a referral made to GMAC, and we're very lucky because at least you folks take the time to listen to the complaints and talk. But you can see where it sits from the property holder's perspective. It's just going to march forward. There is, I mean, the idea that the county would refer this to GMAC without even giving you the benefit of the complaints. I mean, constitutionally, you cannot make a fully informed decision without knowing what the complaints have been. So Mr. Cianco and the experts can submit, as they have, 272 pages that the county chose to submit to you. Not one of the complaints. How is that fair to these 5 property holders? how can a recommendation be made by GMAC?
Sorry, I think we moved on for about the question, but thank you. So that's answered all my questions. Thank you, everybody. I'm sorry for taking all the time. I thought that's wrong.
Okay, first off, I'd like to thank.
Well, sir, do you want my take on it or?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
I wasn't sure.
no. I mean, I think judging the factual nature of all these things is way outside our competence or our remit. We have no place in that process. Where we do stand though is we are a liaison between the county and the community, and it behooves us to ensure that the county's doing right by the community, and part of that is listening to these concerns and at the very least evaluating the factual claims that are presented. It does not sound to me that the county has done that. It is possible that they have and haven't communicated any of it. If that's the case, then that's the case. And whether that's done to the satisfaction of the neighbors is not really our business. But they got to do it, right? They have to make sure that this stuff is all actually meeting the rules. And if they haven't done that, then obviously I'm concerned about that, because clearly there are at least allegations that there are various violations in a bunch of different directions. If the county evaluates that and says that's not the case, then by all means, you know, the construction should move forward. But I want the county to be sure that they know what the facts are on this stuff. And if they haven't done that work, then they should put a stop to this until they can do that work. That's my take.
Okay, I'd like to thank everybody definitely for coming out on a Thursday night and sharing with us your thoughts regarding this project, and to Mr. Cianco and Mr. Weller and Fukuzawa for joining us. The unfortunate position that we are in as GMAC is, as a few people have alluded to, we are an advisory group. We have no authority. We have no jurisdiction. We are just one of the checkoff boxes that the county has in reviewing all coastal development permits. The notification of property owners, and we've experienced this as GMAC through the years, that the applicants are not required to contact the property owners adjacent to a project until it reaches the planning commission stage. And then they are required to send out a notification to all the adjacent property owners prior to it going to the planning commission, so you have an opportunity to share your thoughts. However, I believe the time that you've taken tonight is valuable and important. What we will do is, whatever our recommendation is tonight, we will attach all the documents that you have submitted to us, and we will follow up with the planning department as well. We know that there are some inconsistencies with how they review all documents and plans, and procedurally, we on GMAC try and filter it out and make some common sense to it. But we have been valuable to the county, where we have submitted recommendations to them, and they have responded to them. So by you coming tonight, your time is well vested, and we appreciate that. We have all the documents, I think, in hand, correct, Dave?
Yes.
So what we will do, let me back up. I also understand where Mr. Cianco and Ms. Fukuzawa where they're coming from. They've invested in our community like all of us have. And for those of us that have built from the ground up, we've got a dream. And we believe that when we purchase the property, that we're able to fulfill our dream of building a home that we will love for many years to come. As Robert mentioned, letting the people know the story is the most important part of it. Story polls are a great way to let the residents know the impact of the project on their community. We've done that a few times, and we've minimized a lot of the public's angst over it, because now they can see exactly what the impact of the structure is. The community is more than welcome to submit any comments to the Planning Commission, because I know this will go to the Planning Commission. You will be notified. I would also say, take a look at our website. I know that Don Hess has been real good about letting the public know about meetings that are coming up. We could definitely make sure that we let the public know about any CDPs that are going to the Planning Commission, so the public gets not only a notice from us, but also the county as well. But I do value the importance of being able to build on a property that you purchased. But I also believe that you need to be mindful and a good neighbor, because you're going to be living with those next to those people for many years to come, hopefully. So I turn it back to the council on a recommended action. Don?
I just want to follow up on your comment about the Planning Commission and explain a little bit to members of the public here how that would work if you want to comment to the Planning Commission. You know, you can submit a letter as long as you want, with anything you want on that letter. And there is public comment, but it will be limited to 3 minutes. I can guarantee you that. So just be prepared if it ends up that you want to present not only a document, but also make a statement that is concise. 3 minutes. Thank you.
And I will also add too that for the members of the audience and to Mr. Sianka, not only get the name of the person who's the planner, but there's nothing to say that you can't copy the director of building and planning. Make them aware of your concerns, because that's important, because the planners, like you said, there's 100 and some odd pages that they're looking at. And I can tell you that with the way building is right now, especially on the coast, there's a lot of permits that are being pulled. So being able to thoroughly digest every document that comes in is a heavy lift. And I can understand where things might slip through the cracks. So that's for all of us to be able to, especially all of you that are impacted by the project, stay in contact with the county. Don't send one communication and kind of think that the county is going to remember that. Stay in contact with them through emails and get project updates. Let them know your concerns, because they will respond if you remind them that it's important. Any recommended action by the council? Henry?
Yeah, I would make a motion, which is that I would move that we send the materials we received tonight to the county and tell them that we'd like to get a response from them that they have checked and have reason to believe that the complaints aren't in fact violations before we make an approval.
As part of your recommendation, are you asking them to send it back to us for review, or just mitigate the concerns that have been raised and then move forward with the recommendation of the Planning Commission?
I would say I wouldn't feel comfortable sending a recommendation of approval until the county has actively responded to us that they have looked at this stuff and don't believe that there are any code violations.
Okay. Mr. Sianko, I have a question for you real quick. Has the county given you any projected date for submittal to the Planning Commission?
No, they have not. In fact, we were under the impression that this amendment process would take 2 months, and it's been more than 3+ months. And the communications that I have sent via email to our planner at the county have not been answered. So I'm in the same boat as all of us, where they're not communicating with me either. I'm sorry to say.
CCing the Director of Planning and Building as well in your communications.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's a motion.
Yeah, to put it more concisely, I move that we hold off until the county responds to a request for review of the materials that we send them.
Okay. Sounds like we have time. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Zach. Any discussion by council before we vote?
Yeah, so under our generic sheet that we nowadays religiously do, yeah, maybe under other comments is when you're coming in on that motion, right?
Yeah.
Okay, then I understand, yeah.
So effectively, we're tabling any decision on the CDP.
Till the county responds back to us with any information on the complaints and any updates. Dave?
Do you call for comment? So I'll just observe, comment for this group's benefit and perhaps of others' benefit. It would be extremely unusual for the county to divulge information related to violations, particularly under threat of litigation, with a non-authorized body. This body is not authorized to resolve or adjudicate or in any way become involved in code violations. So the motion as it stands, unfortunately, well, I think well-intended, is misinformed and will put us into essentially a non-active status. We will not receive back from the county what this motion would ask for.
Okay.
Can I modify the motion under
absolutely
which is that they do not have to tell us what their finding is. What I want from them is to know that they have in fact looked at all of this.
So acknowledge receipt?
Not just receipt, that they have seen this and they are satisfied that they have looked into it, regardless of what it is they've found.
I don't believe, based on what David said, I don't believe the county will respond that way to us.
They won't tell us whether they've looked at it?
No.
No, just as, for example, complainants submit materials, they clearly invest in a complaint. The county will not inform a complainant typically, particularly under threat of litigation, on items that could potentially be litigated. It is unfortunate because there's a drop in communication and expectation of feedback, but generally speaking, complainants do not receive the outcome of a violation. In response to the violation, the typical way that a complainant learns of the outcome is through a change in the violation condition.
Yeah, and I'm not asking for an outcome.
I understand, but generally speaking, there's no communication. It may not be sensible, but it is how the law works. At least from my experience as a county planner. We're not going to debate this.
Let's bring it back here.
Yeah. So that you can try it. We can try it. I'm not going to support it, but you can try it if the majority wants to do that and see what happens. I frankly doubt you'll get what you want.
Yeah, I don't see how we can move to approve this if we believe, as I do, that the county has not, in fact, managed these and investigated them.
I have a question.
I'll offer a different motion if your motion is not successful.
Okay, Zach, and then we'll vote on the motion that's on the table, and then we'll go ahead and take it from there. So Zach,
is there a way that GMAC could could request to the county that the county reach out to the residents, you know, in some kind of a listserv kind of a way, like if their information, if their contact information is given to county planning, can GMAC at least, in representing the needs of the desires of the residents and the community, recommend to the county to actually respond to the neighbors, including the homeowner that's developing on the property. You know, is there, I mean, we're not going to get any feedback, and then we're just leaving it to the wind no matter what. So is there any, you know, legitimacy in us at least recommending the county that they do that, you know, respond back to the residents, whether it be individually or in a, you know, some kind of a listserv response? Is that possible?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Boiling down what I'm hearing, if there are aggrieved parties, they're not present. And it wouldn't be up to us to deal with them in any case.
Yeah.
I think it would behoove the aggrieved parties to contact the county directly and say, you know, this is our problem. You know, whether it's encroachment or whatever, you know, runoff, whatever it be. That's not in our wheelhouse to address those issues. It's the county's wheelhouse. As far as GMAC goes, you know, we're here to take a look at the CDPs and the amendments and so forth and say, is this what we would like to see happen, given that it's within the county planner's approval of what is, you know, legal and according to code and up to snuff. I think we could request them to look at whether it's legal and up to snuff and so forth, and that we have questions about it, but it's not in our wheelhouse to say, let us know.
Hang on, Don?
Yeah, I'd kind of like to hear what Dave might offer as an alternative. I do think, I mean, looking back at what we've done in the past on CDPs where there's some controversy or serious questions we have, you know, we usually either vote up or down the CDP. If we voted up, but there are serious questions or issues, then we submit those, or, you know, we ask the county to look into these matters as part of, you know, the CDP process. So in this case, you know, I clearly want us to see us submit all the information from the neighbors here, the issues they've raised. I clearly think the county needs to be aware of those and have a look at them. But yeah, I kind of agree. They're under no responsibility or obligation to come back to us and line by line tell us their response to these issues. I don't think we're going to get that, and I don't think it's their responsibility that they have to an advisory group like us. So this, to me, this is a question we either vote it up or vote it down, and then we attach, you know, our issues that we may have. So getting back to my initial question, I'd kind of like to hear from Dave.
Okay, let me get through everybody and then we'll, okay, Henry and then Robert.
Yeah, I guess I don't understand what the purpose of these reviews is if it's not for this. Like, we have no technical expertise to deploy. We're not here to evaluate, you know, oh, is this permit properly done? Does the permit meet the codes? That is the responsibility of the county. Our role, to the extent that we have one in this process, is as a liaison between the county and the community. And it's not, oh, do we think this is a good thing? That doesn't matter. There are the laws in place, right? it's a question of, you know, are we doing a good job of representing the county to the community and the community to the county? And it seems to me that this is exactly what we're for, is to say, county, we do not think that you have heard what you need to hear from the community, and we would like to make sure that you do. And I'm not asking for what is the results of your findings on each of these issues. I'm asking for, have you looked at them? Or have you just not done it because the county frequently doesn't do things that it's supposed to do? And if the county says, we looked at this, we did it, then great, go ahead. Follow the process, approve it, and if it bothers neighbors, it bothers neighbors. That happens. But if it's the county hasn't actually looked at it and they've assumed things are true that aren't true, then that's our role, is to make sure that the community is heard by the county. That's my feeling. This is, if it's not for this, I don't know what this process is.
Robert?
And regardless of what happens here in our local body, the county has made their own decisions regardless of what we have said, whether it's one way or the other. And so you as residents or concerned neighbors, there is a appeal process also available to you, in case it hadn't been mentioned by any of us yet. It is in the coastal zone, and it is in a coastal appealable zone, coastal zone appealable area. So that's I think the planning commission that you were referring to. So there is a further remedy if you're not satisfied with what we as a council come up with.
Okay. I just have one quick comment that I want to hear your amended motion. This council has made recommendations to the county on many different projects. We said that we approved this CDP with these stipulations. And unless I'm mistaken, I don't recall the county ever coming back to us whether they accepted our stipulations or not. We submitted it and said, this is what we'd like to see, but the county moves forward the way the county wants to do it. I think what we're doing tonight is exactly why we're here. And that's to take all of your information and put it in writing. So it's part of our packet that goes to the county. And when they submit our recommendation to the planning commission, it will include our attachments. And I think that's probably the best path we'll have, because they're not going to respond back to us. They never have, they never will, because once it leaves here, they're moving forward and they don't really feel an obligation to respond back to us, unfortunately. Don had a comment to Dave. Dave, what's your recommended idea?
I think we need to vote on a motion, and if that motion is sustained, then we're done. And if the motion fails, then as I mentioned, I will offer another motion.
Okay. Okay, then with Henry's motion, you want to restate it?
Yeah.
Let me tell you what I heard you say, and you can tell me if I missed it.
I would love that.
Okay. We're going to you move to make sure that we send these materials. And furthermore, in addition to this, I'm going to hold off on the send off until you're able to post the verbatim recording, because I want to include a link to that recording in the transmittal. So I'm going to ask you to do it really fast, okay? Because I usually promise the county 24-hour turnaround. So if you can.
It can be done in 24 hours. Yeah.
So I'm going to point the county's attention to this stuff. That's item number 1. Item number 2 is request that the county acknowledge receipt of these materials, the concerns expressed at this session, and indicate progress on complaints that have been submitted. That's your other part. And then finally, your motion includes withholding recommendation on the CDP referral until receipt of response to item 2. That's what I heard from you.
Okay, that's the motion on the table.
I'll still second it.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And Zach second. We have a motion by Henry, second by Zach. Let's do a roll call in case there's different votes. So Dave?
Okay, you want me to do the roll call?
Yeah.
Okay. Zachary?
Yes.
Let me make sure. So we're voting yes to accept Henry's motion or no?
Yeah, we have a motion and a second.
Okay.
Calling a vote, in favor, yes in favor, no opposed, and certainly abstentions are allowed. So Zach?
Yes.
Voted yes. Don?
No.
Robert?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Yes.
Kevin?
No.
And I would vote no. In this case, we have 1, 2, 3 no's.
And 4 yes. So the motion passes.
Yes, the motion passes as it is. Would you like me to prepare the submittal since I did all the brain damage already on the document?
I would love that.
Okay, so I will prepare this. Again, I'm pending receipt from on the link on the recording. We generally don't post those referrals, but so you guys understand, you saw on the front page of that referral packet, there's a form that has checkboxes and stuff. And so what I'm going to indicate is the appropriate checkbox. I will attach essentially the motion that you just heard. I'm going to print that material. I'll include a link to the verbatim recording, and I'll send this also to the post office box for the planner. That's what we'll do.
Okay.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Just so you all understand, the county does not require our approval to do anything. We are an arm of the county. They can do what they're going to do. If they listen to us, great. Often they don't. I don't want you to think that this is in any way dispositive.
We understand.
Okay. We know that. Right.
David or Don, I just asked a question. The link that you're talking about, is that something that is publicly available?
Oh,
yeah.
It's on our website.
Like what was said here.
Yeah, meeting and agendas on website.
You're on the link. You're on my practice.
Yeah. All on the website.
Don has been recording verbatim recording.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, Mr. Sianco, Ms. Fukasaka, and Mr. Weller, thank you for joining us online. Thank you for your input. This will be forwarded to the county, and the next time everyone will be notified will probably be by notice for the planning commission. And as Mr. Sianco said, he's 3 months out right now, so yeah, I can't tell you when this item may come before them. But anyway, I would encourage you to stay engaged and definitely make sure that you're aware of when the planning commission is and share your thoughts with them.
Okay. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you for yours.
Thank you.
Taking the time to visit with us.
Okay.
We were here anyway. You can.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, and thank you as well on the call.
I really guys feel about all the work you've been doing, especially on development. We're very lucky to have.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
Doors always open.
The more the better. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, item 7-3. Coastal boundary line adjustment to reconfigure the boundary between 2 existing lots. Lot 1 will increase from 0.9 acres to 1+ acres. Lot 2 will decrease from 3.8 acres to 3.7 acres. The site address is 46800 Fish Rock Road and 34601 South State Route 1. The applicant is John Pascal Farrell and Krista Marie Dagley. And we have this application before us to assign any GMAC members that may have a spare moment. And we'll report back on the October 4th meeting. Any volunteers?
I'm happy to look at it. This is, do we think that this requires investigation and further review? Do we
take a look at the referral packet?
Yeah.
You can decide based on what's there and the merits of it,
yeah,
how deep a dive you want to do.
Yeah, I don't know.
Normally boundary line adjustments are fairly straightforward, and it's my impression, having done a quick review of this, it is pretty straightforward.
I'll go solo on this then.
Okay, thank you for taking it.
Yeah, no problem.
Excellent. Item 8, old business, none. Any new business? None. Committee reports, Bower Park renovation. Dan, Henry, or Kevin?
Park's open.
Park is open.
Great. I was there. Looks a little naked, but
good naked.
It feels less dangerous. I'm very much looking forward to the hopefully iterations on the master plans that are coming out. I know that's a topic of ongoing conversation. But yeah, glad to see the park's open.
Zach?
I'm happy to see the park's open too. I'm really happy with the lack of dead hanging trees everywhere, especially around the pond. It's great to see, you know, just more visibility with like maples and redwoods, and yeah, definitely looking forward to the next step and seeing construction happen.
And
yes.
Quick, if I might add something on that item. Adjacent to Bower Park is the Redwood Coast Recreation Center's Ocean Ridge Park. And as you know, that RCRC has been toiling doggedly for years to get a permit to develop that site at an appropriate scale, like low impact development. And today the Planning Commission approved the proposal to build a pavilion, commercial kitchen, restrooms, parking lot, properly graded driveway, septic system, well, fire suppression, all that good stuff. So yay for them.
Wonderful. Now all they have to do is find money.
That's everybody's
minor detail.
They just gave some of it to Bower.
I'll also mention that Mendocino County staff working on the park briefed the Mendocino Coast Recreation Park District Board of Directors on progress and status on the 21st of August. You were present at that event. They're working on design. I just have to say, so that people's expectations are aligned with where this project is and the continuum of getting done, is that the county is increasingly and excruciatingly aware of budget constraints and schedule constraints. They have to get this thing done as their state grant is pushing them hard. And the community is pushing them hard. So from here, we should not expect that interactions with the county and the project are going to be blue sky, what would you like types of questions. They're going to be, if they happen at all, questions to resolve very specific design details, probably about constructability and regulatory complexity. I'll just leave it at that. So again, where we're at in progress is increasingly working as fast as possible to construction documents to get this thing bid on the street and under construction. Thank you.
And I would one thing, kind of ironic and coincidental after Beverly Flynn left here.
Well, she's still here. Beverly's still here. She's in motion. But what's great is that Beverly was here for the Planning Commission. Yeah, it's very gratifying. Thank you.
And I would like to just give a shout out to the county to Mendocino Coast Recreation and Park District, Fixed Fire Park, and representatives from RCRC, because collectively they put their heads together, and I think they've come up with a really good plan for not only the development but the future maintenance and operation of the park. We're not going to build it and leave it unattended. I think there's a good plan in place with all those entities. We're going to have a park, and it'll be one that we're all proud of. Any other comments on that? None. Okay, CalTrans SR1, Walla Downtown Enhancement Project. Before we start, Robert, so could you let her know why you're
As you know, I was many years involved with the Streetscape project from a public generally perspective. Now that it's gone into this next phase where actual property owners are involved with negotiations on easements and temporary construction easements, I have elected to step off the Streetscape committee, and I will recuse myself from any discussion on the Streetscape.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, Dave?
Not much to say, but I can report that CalTrans District 1 updated the Mendocino County Council of Governments on August 12th. You guys all got a copy of the slides and a previous distribution for me, like within the last week. Do you want me to go through the slides? It's a short deck. Or are you okay with the material I sent you earlier?
I was going to discuss a couple of these things, so
okay.
Great to have it. I don't know if we have to go slide by slide, but we can.
Well, if everyone's familiar with the slide deck, we can just get right to your comments.
Right to your comments.
So I'm sort of trying to catch up on some of this stuff, and sort of seeing the presentation at MCOG of this slide deck. So there was some commentary on this first one, which is great to have with the community center. I am trying a little bit to understand the specifics of this. So the original plan had CalTrans landscaping, had the curvilinear sidewalk with landscaping. They've gone to linear, but I'm not totally clear, and I'm hoping that somebody can clarify for me what's going on with the landscape on the east side of the sidewalk. Whether that's something that the community center would be doing, or CalTrans is doing and maintaining, or CalTrans is doing and the community center is maintaining. What's going on with the land? Is that community center land? Is that CalTrans land? Like, I'm trying to figure out where this has landed at this point.
Okay. You want me to respond? Okay. I'm going to step up to this. We'll be easier for everybody when I can get the microphone. This illustrated area is entirely within CalTrans right-of-way. They're permanent right-of-way. It doesn't include a 10-foot TCE, which other property owners are experiencing too. Again, that's temporary. It'll go away after the project's done. So this is the permanent right-of-way. And it's interesting to see this presented over on an aerial, because I don't think many people really have a sense of where that line is. You can walk out now, unfortunately, and you can see some survey markers that do delineate it. But you know, our sense of that little slope there is really different than highway. So CalTrans, this is CalTrans essentially just a visual representation of what they're proposing to do for landscaping east of the sidewalk. There have been discussions between CalTrans and the community center about that. The community center and CalTrans have exchanged design information because both are in the midst of some level of specificity regarding landscaping. Exchange, for example, plant palette, stuff like that, just to make sure that there's some coordination. The topic of maintenance, permanent maintenance, has been broached, but it's too early to get into the weeds of it. Generally, CalTrans as an agency looks to another public agency to make a agreement over permanent landscape maintenance inside of the right of way. And that would be the case certainly here. They're not going to get that in Wallala. The county has now said multiple times, the county DOT has said multiple times that they are not able to make that type of a commitment to the state. And so they will not be doing it. No.
That's across the board.
The county DOT is not authorized to maintain landscaping. For Howard Dashiell, the director of the department. So the county of Mendocino will not be engaging in an agreement here. There may be continuing discussions between the county and CalTrans about that topic, but the last time I heard Mr. Dashiell say something about the topic, he was unequivocal. Now, this is a private nonprofit, and CalTrans may be able to enter into a permanent agreement with a private nonprofit that is willing to do the job, to take on maintenance. That is a topic that's been floated. It has not progressed in any level of detail. It's too early, frankly, in process to do that. I would expect toward the end of design, as this project is approaching construction bidding, that that type of conversation would ripen up. But at least at this point, the parties are aware of what's going on and of mutual interest.
In what context did you hear the blanket, the county's not going to maintain landscaping?
A couple contexts, one of which was the technical advisory committee to the Mendocino Council of Governments. At one meeting, Mr. Dashiell was present and the topic came up and he said, no, he's not going to do that. There's also been some correspondence on that topic. Email that I was involved in. And it's been about a year, so I can't give you a specific response. I apologize for that.
Wait, you're keeping the committee up to date with any relevant correspondence at this point?
At this point, I am. Yeah, this precedes that interaction.
If you can easily find that email, I'd like to see it. If you can't, you can't.
I will not easily find it, I can assure you. But I'm also not lying to you.
Yeah, no, sorry. I believe I'm not doubting.
Yeah, there evidently there is continuing conversation. I heard at the last MCOG meeting, I think you probably had rung off at that point, that Ms. Barrett, the executive director of MCOG, was planning on having further conversation with Mendocino County Department of Transportation. I expressed an interest in finding out where that went or even participating. I didn't get a response. But again, this is a topic that's on all of our radar screens, and I'll be watching for it, as I trust you will too. This is one where it's not yet run to ground. Do you have another?
I finished for this slide anyway.
Okay.
Can you do me a favor and do this with the microphone rather than this? Because it will pop like that.
Oh, I get it. Sorry, I'm spitting in it. Thank you for the prompt.
Yeah, we don't have pop filters.
No pop filters. Sorry about that.
It sounds like that CalTrans may permit, for example, the community center to maintain landscaping along their property.
It's possible.
It's possible. Do you think that would be the same for any property owner that fronts the right of way? That they could maintain the landscaping in front of their property.
Flip forward a couple slides, or maybe the next slide. A little bit more. And that question is relevant here, for example, in front of the shopping center. That's all private, adjacent. I don't know the answer to that. I hope they can. I hope they can figure that out. And I hope they can figure it out in a way that's attractive to Bauer Limited Partnership that owns this particular property. It'd be a shame if it couldn't work out, but I don't know the answer. It is a question I've asked, and I will continue to ask when I interact with CalTrans. Other questions?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the other ones are not so much questions for you as they're probably questions for CalTrans. So what I want to do is set up a committee meeting for the Streetscape Committee to ask some of these and to give you a sense. But I want to the town plan, which is part of the county code, says that this project has to have landscaping, and it's listed as one of the top priorities. Is having the streetscape have a natural and scenic feel to it, so I'm not under the impression that the fact that the law says it necessarily means that's how it's going to be. Obviously, there are various constraints, but I would like to understand exactly what those constraints are and push back a little bit if there is some question as to whether they're going to follow the town plan with regard to this project. I want to ask them a little bit more about exactly where the wetland is that caused a change that, we obviously have gone through endless alternatives and public meetings and et cetera, et cetera. And so to the extent that they're diverging from the established plans, I want to get a little bit better of a sense from them as to, where those changes come from and how hard the boundaries are for what's possible. So I want to understand exactly where the wetland is. I want to understand this landscaping question, and then I particularly want to talk to them about, and I'm sad that the sheriff wasn't here today, but the sheriff had shown interest in taking on the maintenance of landscaping. As a result of, he's got a guy who's been doing the gardening and also does landscaping, and he thinks it would be a useful project for some of the inmates. And crucially, he's already got liability for those inmates. So if he is interested, obviously that is an agency that is a part of government and is very able to take it on. I know. I don't know where that has gone in his discussions with county council, but I'd like to know if CalTrans is engaging on that. So anyway, I think that this is a good place to have a committee meeting and kind of try to get caught up on the changes and ask them some questions about the ways that they diverge from already approved alternatives.
Would you like me to send you the CalTrans project manager's contact information so you can coordinate that meeting?
Yeah, I'm sure I already have it, but if that's easy, you got it to hand.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, when did the sheriff make reference to using inmates as possible people who work landscaping in a public right of way?
This was not a conversation with me. This was a conversation with Tom Murphy that he had. So this is hearsay. But Tom Murphy mentioned it at that meeting with the sheriff.
The reason I ask is with the county dwindling budget, I doubt that they're going to be transporting inmates down here in a public right of way to maintenance. But that's just me. It doesn't sound like it, it sounds like more problems, but I appreciate Mr. Murphy's comment on that. But so I guess what I'm looking at is that was a comment that was made a while ago, not at the last meeting.
No, it's at the NCOG, at the August 12th NCOG meeting. Tom discussed it.
Okay.
And it's whether the sheriff could make that happen is not my business. The county has a legal obligation to do this. It's in county code. That doesn't mean they're going to meet their obligation. They frequently don't.
Especially if they can't pay for it.
Yeah, that's often the excuse. But there are other reasons why they don't meet their obligation to do it. But it's not insane to ask them to make good on it. given that they do have a legal obligation. That's
Sure.
within the code.
Dan?
It should also be noted that inmates, when they work like that, have to be paid.
Yeah, they don't get paid very well.
Yeah, and that isn't gonna come out of CalTrans pocket, I don't think.
Okay, good point.
Before we talk with Caltrans, it may behoove you to do some homework about the meaning of the local coastal program and the Wallala town plan with respect to directives for infrastructure construction. Because it'd be unfortunate if we met with Caltrans and just look like uninformed or misinformed representatives of the public. That is counterproductive. The location of the wetland is known. I can point it out to you unless you wish to just hear it from their mouths, and mine is not acceptable to you. The divergence from established plan, I can also offer some perspective on that. But again, I do appreciate you're looking for a conversation with Caltrans, and so I'm perfectly prepared to accept that you're not interested in anything else from me.
I'm happy to hear it from you too.
Okay. I'll be brief. The town plan, though adopted, is a general plan level document. It does not have the force of the zoning code. It does not have the force of various development specific code requirements based on health and safety code and things like that. That same town plan also requires an 80-foot right of way for the Highway 1. And that isn't going to happen.
Right.
And all the landscaping that the town plan would love to have is in that 80-foot right of way, not the 60-foot right of way that is ultimately going to be purchased and built by this project. So there's lots of indications for any objective reader that a town plan expresses a vision like a general plan typically does, yeah. And especially for elements that are really urban designy, expresses the preferences, visions, goals. Those do not directly translate into precise development direction, particularly when the money isn't attached to it. Yeah. And that is really the case here. So presently Caltrans is in final design, and by necessity, there's a translation, and by reality, there's a translation from conceptual planning, very preliminary planning at no more than say 5 or 10% complete, to 100% complete design that takes into account scope, schedule, budget, constraints, whether they're on the ground, something that has to get moved or can't be moved, regulatory constraints, again, design standards and functionality. That's what they're dealing with now. So the example of the wetland, it's located right here.
Yeah.
And that's, again, based on the preliminary analysis of the site, Caltrans is aware that there's a wet feature there that connects to a drop grate that transmits and reports at this grade right across the street. There's a culvert that carries stormwater runoff. Well, that wetland's really a wetland. It's a jurisdictional wetland, which means that it's really expensive to touch it and do anything with it. So Caltrans determined, rather than tangle with the Army Corps of Engineers and U.S. Fish and Wildlife and state Fish and Wildlife, they're going to adjust the project to avoid it.
Yeah.
That's the wetland feature that they're talking about. You can ask them about it too, but the bottom line is that's what's forcing this constraint here, this pinch point.
Yeah.
And there are a couple other pinch points too that force the reduction in the extent of that center turn lane, again, to avoid taking more land from adjacent private property owners. And that's also where other ideas of marginal landscaping, for example, in front of Surf Market, those have been dropped because of, again, land constraint. And Caltrans is reluctant to spend money to buy additional right-of-way for non-transport purposes.
Yeah.
It makes it very difficult for them, and they don't have the money. So that's established, divergence from established plan. The loss of the curvilinear, that's a cost-saving measure.
Yeah.
It's also a right-of-way reduction measure.
Yeah.
So again, what we're seeing now is reality pressing itself into that.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get a sense from them about these, so the wetland constraint is an external constraint. There's not really anything they can do about it without Herculean efforts.
Time and money.
Yeah, the property, purchasing extra property, that's a question of budget. And that's something where I want to understand a little bit more and hear from them about what the nature of those budget constraints are. You know, it's a fairly well-funded project. Obviously, it wasn't funded enough because they had to go back and get more money.
Yeah, we're seeing continuing escalation.
Yeah.
Beyond forecast.
Yeah. So that's the kind of thing I would like to hear about from them.
Sure. I think a project you would probably really appreciate a project update. And I'd be glad to get one too, because I've attempted several times to get one, something substantive.
Yeah.
This is essentially what suffices for an update. And as you saw, the interaction between MCOG and the CalTrans staff was not substantial.
Yes, that was my experience of that, and that's why I'm hoping a sort of closed committee meeting might have them be a little bit more discursive in response to these questions.
I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Really?
Yeah, no, yeah.
Okay. Any other?
I mean, you will be there tomorrow.
I hope to very much. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? I think we've had a very extensive report on that. Do you have anything else, Henry?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry for the time.
Oh, no worry. Well, all the community center. Okay, I definitely won't go much into that. They're getting ready to submit their 100% construction drawings with filing for a building permit sometime the end of September, beginning of October. We're excited about that, with construction to begin the first quarter of 2025. Right now, the Community Center Board of Directors, Rebuilding Committee, and anybody, we're working on a capital campaign. You may have seen the article in the newspaper today where the Lions donated $40,000 to the Community Center Rebuilding Fund. The pay and take funding that all of you have gone to pay and take and brought your goods and went ahead and purchased items as well. There is a pay and take fund, and the Community Center Board of Directors approved a $100,000 contribution to the Rebuilding Committee Fund as well. So we're moving forward. And we're hoping that $140,000 may serve as a matching fund from the public to get the public to contribute as well. There will be letters sent out, and there'll be cards sent out for donations because we've got a heavy lift, and it looks like we're going to have about, right now, maybe about a $4 million deficit right now that we're having to reach out to the public to help contribute. But we're also looking at both private foundation grants, federal and state grants, and county donation as well. So we're turning over every stone to try and get the money, but we're getting ready to submit the drawings and move forward. Don.
Is the community center considering having special events like silent auction or other events to attract a bunch of people and then promote donating to the building fund?
Great idea. We have one person right now that's looking at developing a concert, a benefit concert that we can have to raise money. We have the Art and Take that has had some art auctions that they've had art for sale, and they donated all the proceeds from that. We have a resident who's done Poke Bowl fundraising through the Thai Kitchen. So your idea is great. We're to get some kind of collective event where we can have a silent auction or a live auction. Those tend to generate more money from the public. So I will share that with our committee, our capital campaign committee, and see what we can do. We have someone who's looking into right now putting on a golf tournament. And they've been in conversation with the Sea Ranch Golf Links. So yeah, we're looking at it. And if any of you have any ideas on fundraising ideas like we had done, please let me know. Because we're going to make it happen. It's just that it's going to be a heavy lift.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I remember during one of the community forums, one of the meetings for the community center rebuild, the CEO of RCMS voiced his opinion that RCMS and community center should work together for their, large funding projects, because, both a staple of the community. Has there been any action or correspondence between community center people and RCMS regarding that, like especially, in regards to like putting on events and stuff? I don't even know what that would, a combined capital campaign would look like, but I was just curious if there's any correspondence happening.
I think we're really having to work hard to keep the funds separate, because a lot of the funding that supports RCMS is medically related.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the donations will come in that way as well. So a shared campaign would probably not serve either one of the entities because of their special use. So you're contributing to the community center for a community facility, and you're donating to RCMS for a medical component in our.
I think that makes sense. I just thought it was a nice idea.
No,
I
like the idea.
What that would look like. So I was curious.
Because we're, as you said, we're reaching into the same pockets.
Yeah.
We're looking at people in both, well, regionally.
Yeah.
To contribute to two major entities that are essential for a community. Dan?
Yeah, the pockets are being hit pretty hard right now.
Mm-hmm.
The North Coast Veterans Monument
Mm-hmm.
that is trying to raise money for a monument up at the Point Arena Lighthouse property.
That's right.
Was just notified about, I don't know, 2 weeks ago or so, or 3 weeks ago, that the cost that they had been quoted is tripled. And that's going to hurt a lot. And everybody's out trying to get some capital funds to do things like this. And the deep pockets don't seem to be there.
And money, you're right, and money's tight. And I know that Coastal Seniors is another entity that they're working out of the Point Arena City Hall, but they would like to have a facility of their own. Our Park and RCRC, two crucial recreation components in our community that, yes, we have a grant. We have the county that right now is not looking at providing any funds for the maintenance operation. That's why we're reaching out to MCRPD. So yeah, so any other donations or any other amenities added to either RCRC or Bower Park are also going to come out of the public's pockets. So yeah, our public is going to be pressed hard, but as we've seen with all of our disasters and challenges we've had in our community, everybody's risen to the occasion and made things happen. So that's the benefit we have. Any other questions regarding the community center?
There was the grant that, was it called the community grant that was applied for with, was it Hoffman?
Yes.
Have you heard anything more about that?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to chuckle. It went through the subcommittee and it was approved for funding. It went through the full committee and approved the funding. So we are on their 80-page report that they submitted to the House of Representatives, and now the House of Representatives has to act on it, approve it without amendments, and then once that's approved, then they send it to the Senate, for review, amendments, approval. And if that's approved, then it goes to the president for signature. So right now, obviously, and I don't mean to talk politics, but the question is, do they act on it before or after the election? And that's what we're kind of sitting on now, is will the committee allocations be approved prior to the election or during the lame duck session after the election? The requirement for the grant is that it has to be spent in 2025. So yeah, it's not something that can be carried over. So we have to allocate the money in 2025. We're in a position to do that. But if they elect to not fund it and then bump it to 2026, then we would have to reapply.
Something gets done like a blanket approval, or is there, like with other grants that I recall, there's some kind of a priority status?
It's, I got a copy of their report and it's one blanket approval. So every one of the congressmen has submitted projects that they'd like to see funded. And then the committee went through and said, okay, we'll fund that. And they look at the dollar amount that's requested, and then they make an allocation and recommendation for approval or not. And so we were approved. And
what's the dollar amount?
It's 7 figures.
7 figures?
Yeah.
Okay. So $1 million plus.
We're not going to know.
7 figures.
You know, I'd like to say that I know, but you know, they through their committee they could say, I'm sorry, we're going to cut this funding in half before we approve it. So as you all of you know, politics is a funny animal, and we'll just wait and see and keep our fingers crossed.
And it's an election.
I was in it. We're consumed by it. Also, what's the status of all this talk you hear about incorporating the pay and take into the design concept of the community center?
The pay and take operation has always been a part of, has always been a component of the design of the facility. Last year, the board of directors identified a representative from the board and members of the pay and take department heads to sit down as a design and review committee to really put together their needs, on what they need square footage wise. And what Robert's referring to is the idea of taking the existing building and bumping it out 20 feet and then going the full distance of the building, which would be 90. So about an 1,800 square foot addition to that building. And that should be able to house all of the pay and take operation under one roof. And that's been the goal of the board since the building burned down, is realizing that everybody was going to have challenges on being able to continue their operation. But the goal is to bring everybody back under one roof. And so, yes, so the annex expansion project has been on the books since September 2023. And yeah, it's so that, yeah, that's, and we're looking at, as part of our capital campaign fundraising, is making sure that we're able to fund the full project. So that would be the community center and the annex expansion. And we want to make both of them happen concurrently.
Okay, thank you.
Any other? Okay, LCPTPT.
I don't have anything to report because nothing's really popped up on this topic, and there's lots going on. The technical studies are underway. I think that the Public Advisory Committee, the Technical Advisory Committee to the groundwater study has been kicked off. But that's the only technical study of the half dozen or so, 5, 4, that involves a technical advisory committee that's includes the lay public. All the others are not inclusive of the public until there are draft materials to review. What I want to do, though, is encourage all of you to get on the mailing list if you have not already. The Grassroots Institute Vision Subcommittee. You can go to the Grassroots Institute website and get on their list to just sign up as an interested party, and you'll be notified of GRI posted events. They're by far and the best, frankly, under Peter McNamany's leadership, the most effective advocate for community involvement in the local coastal program update. And they're putting out a lot of energy and they're staying on top of it. They're able to convene the county and coastal commission when needed. And right now they're on a kind of a bi-monthly schedule for these Zoom sessions. Yep.
The next meeting that they're having is the 19th of this month. So
is that,
that's apparently going to be a little bit different because of the participants are going to have for this particular Zoom meeting. So
the next
either
one,
myself or
I'll try to attend.
Send out information about that to GMAC.
It's a little bit peripheral to the local coastal program update. This particular group, the visioning group led by Peter McNamany, is looking at climate change writ large, and LCP falls under that umbrella of activity. This particular one, the agenda is a presentation on climate change migration. Concept that as climate changes and some places get a lot hotter, there's going to be an out migration from those places to locations like the North Coast that are relatively climate neutral, or at least non-hostile from a climate standpoint. And so he's been asking the question of the county, what is Mendocino County doing to get ready for more people coming here? Which is, again, it is a central question to the LCP update. But again, Peter's looking at different dimensions of the larger climate change and resiliency problem. That's the 19th, and that starts at 3 o'clock.
Okay.
Thanks.
Economic development, Robert, do you have anything?
I have nothing to report. No.
I have one item under that for all of you to be aware that there is a possible ballot measure that's coming up in November. It's with the TBID, the Tourist Business Improvement District. What they're looking at doing, because the county reduced their funding support for Visit Mendocino and the TBID. So TBID, in order to keep their operation going, is looking at adding a 1% increase to the bed tax, the TOT tax, for all of Mendocino. It originally started with just a bed tax, taxing the hoteliers on the coast, but they've since modified that to they're going to apply it to all of the hoteliers, lodging establishments throughout Mendocino County, with a 1% increase, with that money going directly to being earmarked and directly to the TBID to help with their economic development and business improvement throughout the county.
That ballot is the measure on the ballot, or they're still chasing it?
It's still going through the phase. I'm not sure when the deadline is for submittal to be on the ballot.
Close.
Yeah.
But I think that it's, if I'm not mistaken, it can be approved by the Board of Supervisors to be added.
Yep.
So it doesn't take a signature of the public, of the voters, but it can be something added by the Board of Directors, and I believe that's where it's headed. I don't have a confirmation on that, but I would suspect it's going to be soon, because tourism is important to our county, and as we know, it's important to our community here in Malala and the South Coast. Dan?
Would that have to be subject to the Prop 13 requirement for a supermajority to pass?
I don't know if it's 66% or not.
It's a it's not an income tax, so I wouldn't.
So
No, it's any tax, I thought. You can't increase property taxes.
no, it's not a property. Yeah, it's not a property tax.
No,
it's
it's
a,
a transient
yeah,
occupancy, but-
it's an occupancy tax.
I don't think that has supermajority requirements. I could be totally wrong about that.
That's a good question. I do know that there's some things that the county has recommended and they've required a two-thirds vote and then
property and
another
other
majority. So we'll keep you posted. Don's looking at his watch.
5 minutes.
And Melissa's not here, so website, social media. Okay, Don, you can either go 5 minutes or you can say I don't have any.
Not going 5 minutes, I can guarantee you that. Okay, not a whole lot of progress has been made, but I have migrated the development platform that I had on this laptop back to MCN. So it's on their website in the development area. So it's accessible. And however, I'm not going to announce that to the public. It's not for public consumption yet, even though it is publicly available. And I will send all of you the address to get to it. So you can look at it. The other thing I did was I sent it to the link to Ted Williams, just to get in to take a look at it, even though it's obviously it's still under development. And he asked if it was ADA compliant. And so that apparently I wasn't aware of, and apparently just a few months ago, the government came out with some rule that any new websites developed by governmental entities have to be ADA compliant. So I'm going to have to get up to speed on what that's actually, what that involves, and what, if any, modifications or changes, I'll need to make on our website so that it is ADA compliant.
So handle them visually and hearing impaired.
Exactly.
Yeah, screen.
Yeah.
They're WordPress plugins that exist for screen reader support. That'll get you a long way in that direction. What it's like to work with them, I don't know. I assume it's a nightmare. It's going to be really opinionated about a bunch of things.
Well, I'll take a look at the regulations, see what the requirements are, and if there are plugins that can make it happen easily. I think one of the things I just noticed real quickly when I took a cursory look at it is that, for example, if you have a photo, you have to have text describing the photo.
Yeah.
And that's a requirement. So you can't have photo without text.
Right.
That's just one example. I'm sure there's others.
Okay, treasurer's report.
The rent on this has been paid in advance.
Okay.
For a significant period of time. I have to go back and look at it, but
is the county paying it?
The county paid it. Danielle Fitz and Bronwyn Golly got together and figured this whole thing out, sent it to Robert. Robert sent it to me, and I said, do you need a form from me to approve this? And they said, no, we've got it done. Okay, great, thank you.
Nice.
So that's the only financial news I've gotten. We're well under our $5,000.
And good news for us, if and when, when the community center is built, that GMAC is able to use the building with no charge, because they don't, the bylaws for the community center says that we don't charge government entities for the use of the building, meaning the county or GMAC.
Cool.
So we won't pay a cent.
Well, what that effectively means.
And not only that, Don will have to set up all his recording equipment because they'll have that on site.
I'm all for that. But in effect, though, what's happening then is the community center is subsidizing the government.
Yes.
Because the community center has to pay for the utilities and everything. So they're effectively subsidizing a government operation, which I don't think they should have to do.
Right. Okay. Comments from council members. Dave, do you have anything?
Yep. I will be unable to serve in this capacity for the next 3 meetings, essentially through the end of the year, due to long planned out of area travel. My apologies for skipping the job. I can help prepare a draft agenda for the November 7 meeting if I'm able to get meeting of the minutes of the 10-3 meeting by the 1st of November, so I can probably squish that out. But otherwise, checking the post office box.
We'll do it.
Referral checking, posting, distributing agendas, finalizing agendas, drafting and finalizing minutes and meeting actions have to be covered. I brought with me the post office box key to the lucky recipient. You're not ready to take it today. I can bring it to you next week.
Do I have the other one?
You have that. Okay. So my apologies. I'll certainly, cover the stuff for this meeting.
Okay.
So, Kevin, then will you be doing the agenda?
I'll do the agenda.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Following up on that, Dave, will you provide Kevin with the format?
Yep.
We've got it. Yeah, he did that.
You can just plug in.
All right. We'll keep the same format. Zach, do you have anything?
I'm good.
Don? Oh, we're a minute over. Robert? Dan? Henry?
All good.
Motion to adjourn to October 3rd.
I move to adjourn till October 3rd.
Motion by Zach, second. Second by Robert. All in favor?
Aye.
October 3rd. Thank you for getting good meeting, guys.